final shot of Mortal Kombat 2021 isn't a bloody fatality or a soaring martial arts vista. It's a literal movie poster for Johnny Cage. It's a moment of peak cinematic blue balling. A promise of the movie you actually wanted to see, the one with the charismatic lead and the actual tournament, is happening somewhere else, probably in a sequel 3 years from now. We spent 110 minutes in a pre-tournament holding pattern, watching a high-stakes game of supernatural tag that ends with Shang Tsung retreating into a portal like a cartoon villain shaking his fist, promising that he'll be back with armies. It's an ending that feels less like a narrative resolution and more like a pilot episode for a series that's terrified of its own source material. The vibe shifts from a gritty, ancestral revenge epic in the prologue to a rushed superhero team-up in the third act that's almost embarrassed by its own mythology. Thematically, the film tries to grapple with the idea of lineage. You have Hanzo Hasashi's bloodline surviving through the centuries, suggesting that greatness is encoded in our DNA. But this theme is constantly tripping over the Cole Young mandate. The film wants to tell you a story about the weight of history, yet it centers on a character who has no history. Cole Young's purpose in Mortal Kombat was to create a grounded, emotional anchor for the audience. What we got was a guy whose superpower is literally growing a suit of plot armor. The Arcana system is where the film's thematic soul goes to die, by turning a mystical martial arts mastery into a biological ding like leveling up notification. The movie removes the mortal from Mortal Kombat. It's no longer about discipline or the human spirit. It's about whether or not you have a dragon-shaped birthmark that acts like a magical Wi-Fi signal. I mean, the end of the movie does give us like a lot of 1v1 arenas and fights, but it's just seems like a transparent attempt to give fans the fatality dopamine hit that they've craved, while kind of, saving money on large-scale set pieces. And the big reveal isn't really a plot turn, it's a structural surrender. Instead of like a grand tournament on Shang Tsung's island, we get a fight in a gym. So I guess the logic behind it being before the tournament dictates that if the villains killed the heroes before the tournament can't happen. Or they kill enough of them, they can't win. So the whole movie is basically a preemptive strike plot. And it all seems kind of cheap. Like they're trying to find some sort of loophole to avoid filming a bracket-style martial arts movie on a $55 million budget. Then we have the resurrection of Scorpion. The film starts with its best foot forward. The 17th century massacre of the Hasashi clan, that is the peak of this movie. It's atmospheric and brutal, and Joe Taslim's Bihan is legitimately terrifying. It's like that Mortal Kombat Legacy kind of fan film. It felt like that on a big budget. I just kind of wish it kept it to that. But the ending fumbles the payoff. Cole Young uses his protagonist magic to summon his ancestor Hanzo from the pits of the Netherrealm. While seeing Hiroki Sanada breathe fire is top tier visuals, the emotional stakes are non-existent because he's saving a character we don't care about. If Sub-Zero is this unstoppable, centuries-old chiromancer who can freeze the air itself, why is he struggling against a guy whose power is wearing a textured sweater? I mean, the movie, it sets up Sub-Zero as a slasher movie powerhouse only to have him lose to a newcomer in a gym. It recontextualizes the entire movie from a battle of the soul of Earthrealm to local MMA fighter gets a lucky break. The film basically ends with the group splitting up to find more champions, effectively telling the audience, hey, thanks for your $15 on HBO Max. The actual Mortal Kombat starts in part 2. But to understand why Mortal Kombat 2021 feels both expansive and claustrophobic, you have to look at the ledger. $55 million. In Hollywood terms, that's basically a catering budget for a Marvel movie. And director Simon McQuoid was trying to build Outworld on a fast fashion budget. This is why we get the missing tournament drama. The producers were terrified of blowing their load, the arenas, the crowd CGI, the ladder style pacing, only for the movie to flop. So the result is we get this pre-tournament bullshit. It's like the cinematic equivalent of like a 2-hour loading screen. But the real drama, however, wasn't just money. It was the Cole Young mandate. Writer Greg Russo basically confirmed that the studio demanded a normie protagonist. They didn't trust you to understand who Liu Kang was without a generic MMA dad to ask, wait, what's a fatality? It's a classic case of a studio overestimating the complexity of their lore and underestimating the intelligence of their audience. I mean, just look at Street Fighter coming out. They don't have a Cole Young on there. They're just going full batshit video game mode. But let's be real. Joe Taslim as Sub-Zero is the best thing to happen to this franchise since the 1992 arcade cabinet. Joe Taslim is a fucking badass. I believe I read that they had him slow down a lot of his moves because they weren't able to capture it on camera with the frames per second. He plays Bihan like a relentless slasher villain. And when he freezes the blood from a wound to use as a dagger, that is just pure awesomeness. And then there's Josh Lawson's Kano, in a movie that often feels weighed down by its own self-seriousness and the Arcana drivel. Kano is the only one having a blast. He's the dry, deconstructionist wit we needed when he's mocking the magical lore and shouting, Kano wins after ripping out a heart. The movie finally embraces the campy, gory soul of the games. It's cheesy, it's violent, and it's the only time the dialogue doesn't feel like it was written by a committee trying to explain a tax audit. And if you want to see a failed setup, look no further than Goro. He is the Prince of Outworld, a four-armed killing machine who has remained undefeated for generations. Raiden treats Goro like the ultimate threat, a looming shadow of doom. And then he gets killed off in a shed by a guy who just discovered he can grow a golden bodysuit. It's like the ultimate jobber move. Defeating Goro should have been the climax of a 3-movie arc. Instead, he's treated like a mid-level mini-boss in a tutorial level. If the champion of the tournament can be taken out by a novice in a barn, why has Earthrealm been losing for 9 generations? The actors are doing their best, but they are fighting an uphill battle against the Arcana script. Ludi Lin and Max Huang, who play Liu Kang and Kung Lao respectively, have the physical prowess, but they're forced to deliver lines about finding your inner power that feel like they were pulled from a bargain bin self-help book. The logic gaps are everywhere. Why does Melina, a fan favorite chaotic neutral, feel like a generic henchwoman with a skin condition? They nailed the horror mouth in the final edit, but she's given 0 personality. She's like evil woman number 2 until Sonya Blade shoots a ray through her body. So 5 years later, where does the 2021 autopsy leave us? You know, I would still give Mortal Kombat 2021, even though I shit on it the whole time, I'll probably give it a solid 3 out of 5. It's a solid Friday night with a pizza kind of movie that is held back by its own lack of confidence. It's a film defined by its contradictions. It boasts some of the most visceral holy shit fatalities in cinema history. Jax clapping Raiko's head into a red mist is a masterpiece of practical looking gore. It was probably CGI, but it looked pretty good. Yet it's anchored by a protagonist who has the charisma of a beige wall. It's a movie that clearly loves the look of Mortal Kombat, but is terrified of the structure of Mortal Kombat. I love Joe Taslim's Sub-Zero and the sheer R-rated audacity of the kills, but the Cole Young of it all just remains a scar on the film's skin still, after a rewatch after 5 years. If the sequel successfully pivots Johnny Cage in an actual tournament, which it looks to be, the 2021 film will be remembered as the clunky prologue we had to endure to get to the good stuff. The irony is that for a movie so obsessed with the Arcana and Destiny, the best parts are the most human. The petty bickering of Kano, the ancestral rage of Hanzo, and the terrifying silence of Bihan and Sub-Zero. It's at its best when it stops trying to build a cinematic universe and just lets 2 world-class martial artists beat the digital hell out of each other. Ultimately, Mortal Kombat 2021 is a get over here to a franchise that has been dormant for way too long. It's messy, it's logically bankrupt in places, and it treats its most iconic lore like a checklist. But when the theme song kicks in and the blood starts spraying, you remember why you like this nonsense in the first place. Make sure to check out one of these videos by my head. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.